It's Monday, July 20th, 2026. Welcome to The Swamp, where I cover the daily happenings inside our federal machine. If you enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe, leave a comment, and even click on the notification bell, and I'll keep you up to date on everything happening in The Swamp Monday through Friday. Every article is linked below in the description, and the main segments from tonight's episode will be dropping right here on the channel starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We are kicking things off with U.S. Central Command. Busy weekend for the military in the Middle East today at 4 p.m. Eastern. This was posted by CENTCOM about 5 hours ago as of this recording. U.S. forces began a new round of strikes against Iran and the Commander-in-Chief's direction. The strikes are designed to further degrade Iranian military capabilities used to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. From Gunther Eagleman, he says the ninth night of strikes. Trump honoring the fallen heroes, and he's hitting Iran hard, and he is hitting Iran really hard. CENTCOM pounded Iranian command centers and surveillance and maritime targets overnight after Iran killed U.S. service members. President Trump says we hit them very hard again tonight in honor of those great patriots. No more games. Iran can't have nukes, can't attack our troops or shipping. Diplomacy only works if they actually change behavior. Attacking ships instead of honoring agreements shows they understand only strength. Trump's not playing. America is responding decisively. I think they are.
According to CENTCOM, military command centers, surveillance sites, and maritime positions were among the targets that were hit in those strikes. This is taking place after 3 U.S. service members were killed by an Iranian ballistic missile attack in Jordan on Friday. A 4th soldier was killed in northern Iraq during a controlled detonation of an unexploded Iranian drone. President Trump reacted to the deaths of these soldiers on Sunday.
Well, we feel very badly, but you know, those great people, those great patriots are out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But we hit them very hard again tonight, and we did that in honor of the probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots.
President Trump told Fox News last week that if Iran doesn't reach a deal, strikes will escalate this week to hit power plants and bridges. Iranian officials, including some of the
Trump said that was the last
negotiators,
resort a few
remain
months ago.
defiant.
You can neither threaten us nor bribe us. In the negotiations before the 12-day war, they had come to bribe. Not to bribe me, to bribe the Islamic Republic, saying we will do this and that. We will build this and that.
It's a guarantee.
The Iranians are saying publicly that the memorandum of understanding is suspended. Regional countries are reportedly pushing for another agreement, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio indicated the diplomatic path forward remains open.
I think we're always open to diplomacy. It has to be real. It has to be a deal that they're willing to live by. Look, Iran a week ago was supposed to put out a statement saying that the Straits of Hormuz would be open, that they would no longer attack shipping. And instead of doing that, they attacked 3 ships. I think that was last Friday or Saturday.
3 commercial ships.
So, I mean, their behavior has to change in order for ours to change.
Uncertain days ahead. Here in Israel, the military remains on high alert. Just yesterday,
what the hell?
Israeli air defense systems near the city of Eilat were activated as Iranian missiles targeted the southern Jordanian city of Aqaba. Some of the debris from those missiles raining down on southern Israel. Guys?
Wow. All right, Trey, we're going to get to you a little bit more in detail next hour. So
yeah, they're hitting other countries too.
That's what's going on. I mean, 9 straight days. They're really hitting Kuwait hard.
Kuwait is one of them.
But Jordan is the biggest surprise.
Yes.
We got to get missile defense.
But not if you're paying attention to the news this week.
All right, it's 17 minutes after the top.
Okay, so that's it for that clip. Let's move on to the next. The next several are going to be of the conflict in Iran, Strait of Hormuz, and so forth. Unusual Wales says breaking the U.S. military reportedly withheld details of 3 Iranian strikes in Jordan that wounded dozens of troops, fearing disclosure that could help Iran improve its targeting, per New York Times. And I guess the left and the Democrats were throwing flack at the Trump administration if that is true. Unusual Wales, I mean, I think often they have a bias toward the left, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen. But this one, I think that they're pretty in the middle with regard to that. I don't see how that would be really of any surprise. I mean, that you don't want us to give away strategic positions or our weaponry, technology. Like, there's a lot of elements to our military strategy that we don't want to give to the enemy. And unfortunately, if American troops were hurt or, God forbid, killed, then it's going to get disclosed at some point. I mean, if they didn't disclose it 5 minutes after it happened, well, then, I guess, what are you going to do? but at some point, the information is going to come out. It always comes out at some point. From Breaking 911, the Pentagon identified 2 U.S. service members killed in Iranian attacks on an American base in Jordan on Friday and on Saturday. Lieutenant Tyler James Freehan, 25, of Ewa Beach, Hawaii, and Private Isabella Gonzalez, only 19 years old, of Carrollton, Texas. My daughter is only 19 years old. That is unbelievable and heartbreaking on every conceivable level. I cannot even imagine what her parents must be going through right now. So, but President Trump, he swore vengeance, and they did say that there was a third service member who lost his or her life. They didn't name the third, at least when I was looking earlier, or probably mid-afternoon was when I was pulling these posts for tonight's episode. But these were posted about 12 hours ago. They might have the third service member named, and I imagine I'll probably be going through that tomorrow. And from Sean Parnell, while nearly 100 service members were deemed to have some degree of injury since July 7th of this year, 96% of them who were injured have returned to duty. They are determined to get back in the fight. The vast majority of injuries experienced were minor concussions. Further updates will be posted on the Defense Casualty Analysis System. God is good. And here's another one from Sean Parnell. The Department of War rejects these baseless and malicious accusations of hiding injury numbers as outright lies from partisan hacks at the New York Times who are desperate to smear America's military and its leadership. Plus, they're desperate for clicks. They've gone full-on rage bait because they're failing as a mainstream media publication, as many of them are. I mean, look, when the paywall fails, when they can't raise enough money to charge to just simply view their website, they have to start resorting to more desperate measures. But the mainstream media has been doing this for years and years at this point, just trying to drive an insane narrative or frame something that's either non-existent or it's a minimal event, and they just try to blow it up way out of proportion. So it sounds like that's probably what they were doing in this instance. Claims of concealment and fabrications meant to further distress the American people in the wake of 3 service members killed in action. Disgusting behavior, even for the New York Times. In fact, U.S. military casualty information is publicly available and regularly updated online on the Defense Casualty Analysis System for everyone, including the media, to review. Injuries in the military encompass everything from minor sprained ankles during routine training to incidents entirely unrelated to combat operations. Cherry-picking raw numbers without context paints a deliberately misleading and incomplete picture. That's what they're pretty good at doing. Not just the New York Times, but all these publications, they're all doing it. Our troops execute the president's directives with excellence, supported by superior training, equipment, and medical care that prioritizes safety. This is the most transparent Department of War in history. We challenge the so-called journalists who wrote these lies, one of whom was recently subpoenaed regarding an alleged violation of federal criminal law to stop the smears against the finest war-fighting force on Earth. Holy shit, man. They're being subpoenaed, violating federal criminal law. What the hell, man? What's going on with that? New York Times is employing criminals now, I guess. Pentagon withheld dozens of U.S. military injuries in Iran war. Central Command is not required to release information about injured troops, especially when they quickly return to duty, a military official said. Look, man, they said it doesn't matter what the injury is, even if it's a minor sprained ankle, they're going to put it on their website. It's publicly available information. So maybe they're just completely making this shit up, or they went to some source who probably has no credibility at all. I mean, like, anybody can be a source. I mean, like, somebody who's never even been in the military could probably technically be a source. As long as they hear from somebody who's not working for the New York Times, I'm sure that they would probably consider them a source. Let's just say they're anonymous. You know, that tends to work out well in our favor. All right, from AFP News Agency, U.S. Army footage shows a 9th consecutive night of strikes on Iran. Footage released by the U.S. Central Command on July 19th shows U.S. forces launching its 9th consecutive night of strikes on Iranian military capabilities. Check it out. Now, I read somewhere the other day, I believe it was actually yesterday, just in the last few days, we've hit over 2,000 targets in Iran. And of course, as we saw on Friday, we're now going after their bridges, their transportation, the rail lines, and we're starting to hit them at their infrastructure because it appears as though they're trucking all this heavy equipment, military equipment, and we're just trying to sever their ability to do so. But I do remember Trump a couple of months ago, as I mentioned earlier, that power plants was something that's on the table, but as a last resort. And if they're not going to come to the table or be diplomatic, they keep firing at civilian ships. I mean, like, I'm assuming that we're just going down the list of things that were taken out, and it may have to get to that point. Hopefully it doesn't, because President Trump says he doesn't want to impact the Iranian civilians' lives too badly. And obviously taking out power plants would do just that. So anyway, from OSINT, technical newly released footage of U.S. forces conducting airstrikes on Iran overnight, seen hitting construction equipment and a coastal radar site. This is on July the 19th, so yesterday. Only 18 seconds. Probably no sound. No sound. But a big hit. No doubt about that. Second big hit. I see something over there. Not anymore. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah. Definitely a radar installation. Another one bites the dust. Just taking them out by the thousands. All right. Rajendran says footage of U.S. airstrike on Iranian terrorist regime target. Now, this didn't get any likes or anything. This stood out as just some of the footage that I was going over. The ones that don't have a lot of likes, like that number in the thousands, for example, I tend to take with an extra big grain of salt. It didn't appear to be AI for me, from my opinion. So I'm just saying that there is no absolute guarantee that this did happen last night. I'm just throwing that out there. Not trying to go all misinformation or anything. This is just circulating around on the internet. But it's nothing too dramatic. You're just seeing flashes off in the distance. And a loud explosion. So, you know, that's why I kept it in here, because I believe it. I mean, it seems legit to me. Anyway, Nicholas Lissack, first footage has emerged from tonight's blistering U.S. strikes on Iran's terrorist regime, with results now blazingly clear. This video shows an IRGC missile site in Tabriz near the Turkish border, utterly destroyed and engulfed in flames. We are winning. Iran will be free. Everything's on fire.
God.
Last I heard, the people in Iran still have the internet, by and large. That could have definitely changed over the weekend. I take a break from the news and the happenings over the weekend. Just time to relax and decompress. But I didn't come across anything today with regard to nationwide internet blackout in Iran. And that could very well be the reason why videos like this are making their way onto the internet. Another one from OSINT Defender. Footage reportedly shows U.S. Army M270s firing a salvo of ATACMS earlier this week at an undisclosed location in the Middle East during renewed combat operations against Iran. So they're firing off some rockets here.
No one supposed to fire.
And there they go. Godspeed. Iran shall be free. All right. No clue where those ended up, but just taking off. Open source intel from yesterday. Iran footage appears... No, in Iran. This isn't Iran footage. This is footage in Iran appears to show the aftermath of a strike on the Darkhovin nuclear power plant construction site in Khuzestan province in Iran. Assuming this is either U.S. forces. I'm not even sure if Israel, I don't know if they're conducting strikes too. I imagine they probably are. So anyway, just smoke off in the distance. Again, there's no 100% like definitive way to prove exactly what that is. Just going by what the title says. Just shy of 1,000 likes. Again, grain of salt. From Baba Benares, U.S. Air Forces launched fresh airstrikes against IRGC targets. An explosion was reported in the vicinity of the Sanai Electronic Industries complex in Shiraz, Fars province, Iran. The facility is one of the country's largest drone component manufacturing hubs. Let's see what this one's all about. A lot of smoke. Heavy duty. There you go, man. In broad daylight. Grain of salt, but still. 3,500 likes for that one. 67,000 views. Blue check mark. No government profile, but, you know, that's kind of how these on-the-ground footage clips tend to turn up. From the Hormuz letter, breaking, Iran directly rejects the U.S.-backed Qatar's new proposal of a 10-day ceasefire that would halt U.S. strikes on Iran in exchange for Iran opening 2 Hormuz shipping lanes, with Iran's senior negotiating member, Marandi, saying, "Don't even think about it." This follows Iran's formal MOU exit 2 days ago, and Iranian Deputy FM Gharibabadi stating that Iran will never start negotiations with the U.S. under any circumstances. So is that dude, I don't know if he's as official as it gets. I'm not sure exactly what that title means, but I mean, if that's the official statement of Iran, I mean, obviously this thing ain't gonna be ending anytime soon if that's really the case, if they're not willing to negotiate at all. So, you know, what do we do from there? And from this one, BRICS News, just in, Iranian President Pezeshkian says Iran is in a full-scale war with the United States. So did the Iranian government, I guess, formally declare war against the United States? Is that what he's trying to say here? I don't know. That's just according to BRICS News, full-scale war. And this is from the Iran Watcher. There are unverified reports that tanks are being transported toward southern Iran amid concerns over a potential U.S. ground incursion. This footage reportedly originates from Isfahan and is said to show tanks being moved south. The location and context have not yet been independently verified. So that's the key takeaway. We don't know exactly where this is, when this is, but it does show tanks being moved. Real short, but I got another one. I got another clip that's a bit longer. The Iran Watcher, an Islamic Republic State TV host, openly said that even if the United States occupied southern Iran, the world would not end. The regime is now conditioning the Iranian public to accept the possibility of a U.S. ground invasion and foreign troops on Iranian soil. It also, exposes the hollowness of decades of propaganda claiming the Islamic Republic is indispensable to Iran's security. A regime that openly entertains the occupation of its own territory has no credibility when it claims to be the guardian of Iran's sovereignty, territorial integrity, or national interests. All right. And I'm not sure if we're going to get anything in English, though. Yeah, see, that's why I stated. Okay, look, if you understand, I'll repost this. There's a direct link to my profile below in the description. And let's see what else they said. This is from a few days ago. The recent U.S. strike pattern is beginning to resemble the opening phase of some of history's largest military campaigns. Throughout modern warfare, major offensives have often been preceded by systematic attacks on transportation networks, bridges, railways, logistics hubs, air defenses, communications, command centers, and energy infrastructure. Look, I think with the exception of bridges and railways, I think that's what we've been doing since, when was I, like the last day of February. These are known as shaping operations, campaigns designed to isolate the battlefield, slow reinforcements, disrupt supply lines, and degrade an adversary's ability to coordinate and sustain combat before the decisive phase of a conflict. Historical examples include, I'm not going to go through all the details with those, but you can read them on screen. Invasion of Sicily, Normandy D-Day, Operation Bagration, let's see, Operation Cobra, Desert Storm, Iraq War, Russian invasion of Ukraine. And they go into some more detail with regard to that. If you want to read that in detail, I'll repost that as well. And let's head on back to the next. Where's that next one with all the tanks? The Global Eye, breaking circulating footage reportedly shows heavy Iranian military reinforcements being transferred to the southern border with Iraq, close to Kuwait. The footage reportedly recorded in Avaz, Khuzestan province, a majority Arab area in southwestern Iran, shows the movement and transport of several Iranian M113 armored personnel carriers, APCs, M577 command post carriers, as well as T-72 main battle tanks. So they've got all of those on trucks. Rolling on south, I guess. Damn, so I guess they're just gonna show them one after another, or one after the next for a full minute. Unless they're looping, and we're just watching the same 6 trucks over and over again. Yeah, they look different. Well, they're taking them somewhere, assuming this was over the weekend. and not like a year ago.
13 دبابة وغير التقدم كان غير لون سود وهذا غير لون 13 دبابة وإذا بكم إن شاء الله شوفوا هاي الدبابات عينوا هاي جاكت بوليس راغبين جاكت أهواز أنتي ماشي.
Just rolling down the highway with everyday traffic, heading, from what they said, heading south. Was that toward Kuwait, the Kuwait-Iraq border or area? Yeah, close to Kuwait, near the Iraq border. Breaking 911, Iranian media released footage claiming the IRGC Navy shot down a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper off of southern Iran. So that's what they say that happened here. Okay, well, that was what was released. Whether they did or not, I guess there you have it. I didn't come across anything, not to say that they didn't confirm that it was shot down. I just didn't see anything today from the military saying that there was, what was it, MQ-9 Reaper? Yeah, MQ-9 Reaper that was shot down. And from open source intel, footage shows an IRGC launch from Lar Fars province, Iran, most likely targeting Bahrain. So this is flying out of Iran. Just 3 seconds, just a quick 3-second clip. Not doing anything but flying through the sky. Next one, footage from the Al Subiya Kuwaiti power station and water desalination plant, which was struck by Iran today. This was yesterday. Oh man, arc and electricity. Dude, it's way too close, man. I don't know, just judging by the sound, you could hear the electricity. Anyway, it's not good. Megatron breaking direct impacts at a U.S. base in Bahrain. Again, grain of salt. I would say this is unconfirmed because this didn't come straight out of Central Command or any U.S. military official. It's not even showing a strike, it's just showing what appears to be smoke. But okay, whatever, it's just another one I came across. All right, and I believe that's all the footage I have for tonight. We're gonna move on from Clash Report. Marco Rubio on Iran. He says, I do think the world is coming to a point now where it's clear that Iran, at least some people in Iran, want to control the straits and hold it as leverage against the world. And the world has to decide whether or not it's going to allow an international waterway to be under the control of a country like this. It would be completely illegal, unlawful, and unacceptable. The United States will continue to do what it needs to protect global shipping, but other countries need to begin to step up and provide, whether it's hardware or finances, to help carry that burden.
But I do think the world is coming to a point now where it's clear that Iran, at least some people in Iran, want to control the strait and hold that as leverage against the world. And the world has to decide whether or not it's going to allow an international waterway to be under the control of a country like that. It will be completely illegal, unlawful, and unacceptable. The United States will continue to do what it needs to protect global shipping, but other countries need to begin to step up and provide, whether it's hardware or finances, to help carry that burden.
Well, and is this something that Iran, the IRGC, the Ayatollah, is that something that they've been threatening or they've been talking about doing since before Operation Epic Fury even began? That they were going to start tolling the Strait of Hormuz, they were going to start intercepting ships and requiring them to pay money to pass. I didn't come across anything like that way back when. That would have been in February or even earlier than that. But maybe. I just didn't hear that communicated when Operation Epic Fury first happened. I just imagine that at this point, that's what they want to do. Although we don't get any oil from the Strait of Hormuz. We don't get any oil from the region, not to my knowledge. And I believe that most of Europe doesn't get their oil. I think the majority of it ends up in Asia. So Asia is the one that, or that's the region, the continent that benefits the most from this, all the oil that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, which is about 20% of the world's oil supply, which of course, if it's bottlenecked, if it's frozen, if it's unable to pass without any aggression or any drama, then everything will be pretty fine. The gas prices will be kind of what it is usually, more or less. But if they do create a bottleneck or they close the Strait of Hormuz, then obviously our gas prices are going to skyrocket because we've got this whole global oil market. And, regardless if we even benefit from any of the oil, which we don't, but still, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they could fix that kind of situation because with the whole petrodollar and all that going on. Anyway, from Fox News, breaking: the Kuwaiti army says it is intercepting Iranian missiles and drones incoming into its country after heinous Iranian aggression. As tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate, the General Staff of the Army says any explosion sounds heard are the result of air defense systems neutralizing hostile attacks.
So now we've got this breaking news. There is more escalation in the Middle East happening as we speak. The Kuwaiti army now reports it is intercepting Iranian missiles and drones incoming into its country. Remember, their large U.S. Army base in Kuwait. We'll get you the latest as soon as we continue. So now we've got this breaking news. There is more escalation.
That was that. So they didn't go into any detail. They're just like, whenever we get some answers, you know, we'll keep you up to date, whatever. So that was today at about 10 o'clock a.m. And of course, the very first post I led with was from Central Command. That was just a few hours ago. So as far as Central Command goes, that was the latest update that I saw. From Caroline Levitt, President Trump vows to make Iran pay for each American death many times over. That's going to be on justthenews.com. And let me get this sized up. Looks like I haven't been on Just the News in a while. All right, usually I got all these all sized up. President Donald Trump on Monday vowed that Iran would pay many times over for every American killed in the ongoing war. The U.S. has launched a series of strikes over the past weeks after the breakdown of a peace agreement. Trump has sought to extract a commitment from Iran to never possess a nuclear weapon and aim to break them away from their proxy groups in Yemen and Lebanon. Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. This directive has been passed on to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Daniel Kaine, and every leader in the military, which he posted on our Truth Social. Trump's comments come as Iran has inflicted casualties on American service members in recent days. Earlier on Monday, the White House touted a poll that found more than 60% support for the original peace agreement, which collapsed amid failed negotiations. The Houthi movement in Yemen, moreover, announced a naval blockade of Saudi Arabia in an apparent widening of the conflict. So I don't know if there's going to be anything coming out of that or not, but that would certainly complicate things if that were to happen. And just a short article, short to the point. And let's see. All right, so we got that from Caroline Levitt. The U.S. military on Sunday night unleashed a 9th straight night of punishing aerial attacks on Iran, seeking to degrade Tehran's military capabilities after its attacks on American troops and ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It's another one from Just the News. This one, it'll probably be a short one as well. So, all right, so U.S. Central Command said the strikes began around 7 p.m. and media reports indicated a large swath of Iran was under a barrage. Quote, the strikes will continue degrading Iranian military capabilities used to attack commercial vessels and civilian mariners transiting the Strait of Hormuz, CENTCOM said on X. I think that was the original, the first post that I led with today. I think that was the one. And let's see, what do we got for the next one? From Secretary Sean Duffy, making history. 13 midshipmen from U.S. MMA official, Federal Service Academy, College, Merchant Marine Mariners, Acta Non Verba. The world is our campus. They were awarded the Presidential Unit Citation. I don't know why I couldn't say that. For their role in delivering supplies to our troops in Operation Epic Fury. This is the first time this military award has been presented to civilians, proving just how vital America's merchant marine is to our military success. These midshipmen are serving our country before they even graduate. True patriots. And there's the vessel. They didn't show anything beyond these two images. It's just a note that they received an award for their bravery and their aid in the Operation Epic Fury. And from the Associated Press, breaking: U.S. gas prices have jumped to an average of $4 a gallon again as the U.S. and Iran launch more attacks. So, of course, the gas is going back up again. Lovely, great. In the middle of summer, you know, a time when people like to be out and about, traveling, especially like road trips, camping trips, hunting trips, fishing trips. And this is out of New York. For some reason, U.S. gas prices jumped back to $4 a gallon on average Monday as Washington's latest fighting with Iran renews strain on the flow of fuel worldwide. According to Motor Club AAA, the national average for a gallon of regular gas is now just above the $4 mark. That's about 13 cents more expensive than it was a week ago, and far higher where prices at the pump stood at this time last year when American drivers could fill up for about $3.14 a gallon on average. The U.S. and Israel's war with Iran plunged the world into a global energy crisis, notably as the cost of crude oil, the main ingredient in gasoline, soared due to supply chain and production disruptions across the Middle East. Energy prices cooled last month when Washington and Tehran reached an interim agreement aimed at permanently ending their fighting and reviving traffic in the key Strait of Hormuz. But the peace deal has now crumbled. Now, are they going to explain why it crumbled? With the U.S. on Monday only intensifying airstrikes against Iran, well, why did they do that? Which has responded by launching its own attacks on American allies in the region, and oil flows are largely stalling again. They left out one important part. That there was a peace deal in place for 60 days, and for some reason it fell apart. They skipped the why it fell apart. It was because Iran fired and struck 3 commercial shipping vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, which is a direct violation of that 60-day agreement. Now, why would the AP leave that out? Very, very suspicious. It's almost as if they're trying to drive a certain narrative. Many eyes are on the White House before co-launching the war in late February. President Trump once bragged about keeping gas prices low and expressed frustration about them not falling as quickly as the cost of crude oil last month. If prices continue to rebound, expensive gas will be likely at the top of voters' minds during the midterm elections this November. Anyway, so they just go on from there. Yeah, actually it doesn't really go on that much longer, but they're just talking about just gas prices. It's $5.42 in Hawaii, which I'm sure they probably got extra gas taxes in Hawaii, just like they do in California. I'm not saying that they do. It just wouldn't surprise me if they do. Anyway, from Bar Chart, crude oil only has 43 days of supply left in the U.S., the lowest inventory in 45 years. They're talking about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. U.S. crude inventories are the lowest in 45 years. U.S. crude oil day supply, including Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Well, I mean, if you look at this, like 2018, 2019, going into 2020, obviously it rocketed up in 2020 because of all the lockdowns. People weren't driving as much. A lot of people went to work from home, so clearly the supply of oil shot up. And then Joe Biden gets in, and you think, fresh out of the COVID pandemic, and frankly, in some ways, still kind of in the middle of it by the time he takes over, you would think that this amount of fuel should stay incredibly elevated, but for some weird reason, he started digging into our Strategic Petroleum Reserves. I think it's because he shut down the pipelines, right? Like he shut down the pipelines. I think Keystone was one of them. There were 2 major pipelines that Biden shut down. And then he also withdrew, I believe it was like pretty much all incoming contracts, maybe even some existing contracts on federal land for drilling for oil. So definitely tightening up greatly the supply of oil that was to be extracted and processed. And then, of course, gas started shooting up. And you remember that. It was like Biden's first year, maybe a second year in office, with gas shot up to like $5-6 a gallon. And then he started digging into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which absolutely cratered the supply that was available. And then when Trump gets in, yeah, it was extremely depleted. I think that like out of a supply of like, what was the average? It's like 800 million barrels or something like that. And the Biden administration depleted it down to like something like 200 million or whatever. It was a pretty low amount. So yeah, anyway, fortunately, the infrastructure in Venezuela is starting to get back off the ground again. I know that's going to take some time for them to really get fully operational because the oil industry has been in a state of decay for years and years. So there's that. I know we've been, I guess secretly, have been taking oil from Iran. I don't know if that's still happening or not. So I guess there are other ways to replenish the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, although I'm not really a big fan of stealing other people's oil. Not that we're doing that in Venezuela, but I think we're getting a pretty good discount from Venezuela, whatever that might look like. You know, I guess maybe it remains to be seen. Maybe they already came up with a number. But anyway, I guess that's for another time. From the White House, the largest denaturalization effort ever. American citizenship through naturalization is a privilege. America's laws and values must be upheld and respected. Trump administration fast-tracks deportations of fraudsters and pervy priests, and largest denaturalization effort ever. And they've got that from the New York Post here as it loads up. Out of Washington, the Trump administration is ramping up an effort to deport criminal, illegal aliens and will be announcing denaturalization actions against 10 of them on Monday, including a fraudster who bilked taxpayers out of nearly $1 million in Medicare funding, the Post has learned. The Department of Justice filed actions in the past 30 days regarding naturalized U.S. citizens from Mexico, Cuba, Pakistan, Peru, and Poland who were convicted of healthcare fraud, wire fraud, immigration fraud, and child sex abuse and drug trafficking. The move is part of what administration officials have dubbed the largest denaturalization effort ever, and includes one of the first attempts to remove a healthcare fraudster from the U.S. Well, I mean, that should happen. if you defraud the American taxpayers, you commit felonies. I would say even if you were, recently granted your U.S. citizenship. Like, I don't know how long that timeline is. I'm sure there's plenty of debates on that, if it should be like 10 years or if it should be for a lifetime. You know, if you're not born in the U.S. and you immigrate to the U.S. and you become a U.S. citizen, and then like 20 some years later you end up committing a felony, should you be denaturalized? I don't know. I'd say a lot of people would say absolutely, because you broke our laws. You know, you betrayed our trust and our good graces, our goodwill. But whatever. Anyway, so these 10 criminal aliens, including child sex abusers, a $900,000 Medicare fraudster, and a cocaine trafficker, lied their way into U.S. citizenship, said Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche in a statement. Quote, when you commit fraud during the naturalization process, you forfeit the right to keep your U.S. citizenship. And let's see, Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen added these criminal aliens comprised of drug traffickers, pedophiles, and fraudsters lost that right, my bad. I'm fumbling like crazy tonight. Lost that right and exploited our immigration system, harming real U.S. citizens. DHS is committed to ensuring we denaturalize and remove these fraudsters with every tool at our disposal. And Yask Michael Rodriguez Perez was convicted in January of 2020 of running a fake medical center in Miami that fraudulently billed Medicare more than $886,694 for unnecessary prescriptions to HHAs, home health agencies, also pharmacies, and patient recruiters. According to a July 18th filing, the 45-year-old Cuban native had become a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2018. And there he is, the fraudster. And two former Catholic priests, Urbano Vasquez Ortega and Martin Stanislaw Garbax, also had actions submitted against them after being convicted of child sex crimes. Ortega is currently serving a 15-year prison sentence for second-degree child sex abuse after he assaulted minors while working as a priest in Washington, D.C. at a church there before, during, and after becoming a naturalized citizen in 2017. The Mexican native sexually abused minor females from his congregation, Sacred Heart Shrine, by groping their breasts, their buttocks, and even putting his tongue in the mouth of one of them, a July 10 filing noted. Again, this is on the New York Post. It's on New York Post. Not my words, New York Post. And Garbax, a Polish native, was convicted on 65 counts of stealing more than $250,000 from 3 Catholic parishes while serving between 2012 and 2019 as a priest in Rapid City, South Dakota, as well as engaging in illicit sexual conduct by filming a 17-year-old male in a hotel's shower during a parish trip to Krakow. The 47-year-old was sentenced to 117 months in prison in 2022. Garbax had become a naturalized citizen in 2014 and now faces denaturalization per a July 6 filing. And there's that individual. Another June 15th denaturalization filing against Mexican native Omar Cantu Montalvo, also cited 2016 conviction of conspiring to distribute more than 5 kilos of cocaine. The 44-year-old served a 100-month sentence after having become a naturalized citizen in 2005. And it goes on from there. I'm not going to go through all of what little of it is left while they go through more of the names, but that'll be linked right down in the description. You know where to find it if you need to have a look at the rest of that. From Laura Loomer, Senator Warren just endorsed an Islamic communist who supports defunding the police and abolishing ICE. Yeah, because why wouldn't she? Elizabeth Warren herself says, I'm endorsing Abdul El-Sayed today because he is the fighter Michigan needs in the Senate. In other words, he's a communist and she loves communists now. She's all about communism.
I'm endorsing Abdul El-Sayed for Senate in Michigan. Abdul is the only candidate in this race not
Democrats
taking
like the
corporate money. And
We're
he's
going
fighting
communism
to get money out of politics altogether. Abdul studied to be a doctor, and he's fighting for every single American to have affordable, high-quality health care. Abdul has been a card-carrying union member, and he's fighting for working people. That's why he's endorsed by the United Auto Workers, and he's growing a movement of working people all across Michigan. And that's why I'm endorsing Abdul. He is the fighter Michigan needs in the Senate. Michiganders deserve a senator who will fight for you, not for special interests running millions of dollars in TV ads to buy this seat.
Oh, yeah, not yet.
And make no mistake,
we'll see.
Abdul is the only candidate in this race who can build the grassroots movement.
Well, what about Graham Plattner? That's what he was talking about doing.
November.
All about grassroots.
Money in your pocket to get money out of
goldfish memory
politics and deliver Medicare for all. Michigan, Let's get this done.
Oh my God, dude, why does she give a fuck, man? She's from Massachusetts. Why does she give a shit? I mean, I guess I get that she's in the Senate and whatever. But dude, like, shouldn't she be paying attention to what's going on in Massachusetts and not fiddle farting around in freaking Michigan? I mean, come on, man. Anyway, 9mm SMG. This should immediately qualify you for a mandatory psych admission and not a run for Senate. We don't do this anymore. Remarks just in. Ashley Webb, a transgender, a Democrat running for U.S. Senate in Maine, claims he has a monthly period through his rectum. What? So there's no videos for that, but I do have a video on the next post. That got 7.4 million views. Holy shit. From Colin Rugg, new Democrat Maine Senate candidate Ashley Webb says he would produce a mucus while discussing his alleged cycle. The comment came as Webb was telling a bizarre story about how his birth records were magically destroyed. And let's see, what's the quote? I also leak like a mucus, which they can't really explain. And this is on a podcast with Amethysta Herrick, PhD. I don't know. That sounds like chronic constipation and probably hemorrhoids. That's probably what that is.
You have mentioned you're intersex. How did that end up coming about? How did you find all this out?
The individual on the left is running for Senate.
Medical records
in Maine.
Don't add up.
Replacing Grand Lab.
And my birth records.
Okay. Wait, birth records?
Yeah, you lost him, dude.
Can you explain that further? I don't want to.
So, when I was born, the hospital admin for the medical records signed off on the birth record, and they filed it pretty certain a little bit over 30 days past my birth.
Oh wow.
And then what they told my mother was they supposedly ran out of birth forms. Now when I reached out to the town clerk of where I was born, specifically asked them, oh, how many other birth certificates did this admin sign? Turns out mine was the only one.
Oh, okay. Well, what was the I mean, why was there an issue? What happened? I guess
why does this have to do with anything?
The issue that I'm running into is because, well, unfortunately, they only retained birth records for 20 years, and mine got destroyed. So now I'm not going to get an answer as to why they did that. But
oh god,
what is he? Is he trying to just further confirm that he is a woman and not a man? Well, why don't you just get a simple a genetics test just showing the fact that you have XY chromosomes and not XX chromosomes?
Another reason why I started digging into it was because of I had a blood test
or you just do the easy,
and my estrogen was like 285 pg/ml, and that's with no hormones, just my own production.
Okay, that's significant. Okay, so how did you end up going to get like an estrogen level taken?
Well, I was experiencing hot flashes, and I asked the doctor to run an estrogen test, and I guess they don't do that for.
You're saying so the idea then that
a certain scene from Kindergarten Cop
comes to mind.
Ovaries,
but or you have ovaries, I suppose that were generating estrogen, but not necessarily ovulating.
Which he doesn't.
Oh,
is what you're saying.
I don't know about the ovulation. Because I do get symptoms too that I was until I went on estrogen.
Can you pee standing up?
Went away completely.
Okay.
This isn't rocket science.
I would I would feel really good on like the 15th day of every cycle, and it was a 29-day cycle that I was experiencing.
I mean, this sounds pretty.
Is that where we're going here?
Sounds pretty cycly there. So
I don't know.
And then
let me read
during that time, I was gonna
go ahead.
During that time, like I also leak like a mucus, which they can't really explain.
Oh, interesting. You want to call yourself transgender despite not necessarily knowing what all parts are inside?
Well, I mean, the doctors
gave me the
label, and I want to keep it because
I see.
Even if I'm intersex, like the intersex community pretty much tossed me out and didn't want to talk to me.
Oh.
What do they call this? Affirming conversation?
Any story there you want to
call that?
You want to finish?
Or you just delusionally agree with whatever the hell it is you're talking about?
I was asking them, like, I have these CAT scans, can you take a look? And, tell me what you think. And I guess they're northern, so they kicked me out.
Yeah, because they're like, look, you can have whatever scans you want as long as you're paying for it. We're not going to have the taxpayers pay for it because we already know what you are. We know that you're a man. You're a male.
Okay, well, I mean, good welcoming community. Thanks.
Chromosomes. The trans community welcomed me without any issues.
Yeah. All right. So you call yourself transgender.
Transformers XY in, or wait, no, I fucked it up. Transgender XY in disguise. Okay, anyway. Now, is Ashley Webb going to end up being the front runner in the state of Maine? Honestly, I don't have any idea. I somehow doubt it, but, you know, crazy things are happening in 2026, so I can't say it would exactly surprise me if Ashley Webb became the front runner to run against, who was it, Susan Collins, I think. All right, so war correspondent breaking. The U.S. House has just passed the Save America Act again, attached to must-pass national security legislation by a 217 to 209 vote. Great! MAGA Mike got the job done and is still pushing it in reconciliation too. Now the Senate needs to get tough and secure our elections, send it to Trump's desk. So we'll hear this play out. You know how it goes, they bang the gavel, then they announce it, the yays, the nays.
Without objection, or 2-7. This vote.
There we go. Serves me
right.
On
this vote, the yeas are 217, the nays are 209. The bill is
Mike
passed
Johnson.
without objection. A motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
It's on the table. So it's like, what is that, like the fourth time that the Save America Act is passed in the House? I mean, it's quite clear that it could get through the House. It's just a problem with trying to get through the Senate. That's where all the real drama is happening. That's why they need, the standing filibuster, which the leader of the Senate, John Thune, is refusing to do for some weird reason. This is from Trump War Room, who posted President Trump's Truth Social post from, I believe this was from today. Yeah, it was 10 hours ago. Thank you to our great speaker, Mike Johnson, the House Budget Chairman, Jody Arrington, and the members of the House Budget Committee, including Lloyd Smucker, Ron Estes, Andrew Clyde, Josh Breaching, Aaron Hochin, Mike Carey, Blake Moore, Jay Abernolte, Tim McClintock, and many others for launching an effort to get as much of the Save America Act as possible in a budget bill, along with aid to our incredible farmers and funding for our military. We need voter photo ID identification, proof of citizenship, and hopefully no corrupt mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, and military travel. I'm asking all House Republicans to vote yes this week on the budget resolution, which is an important first step toward getting a budget bill. House Republicans must unify and fight for the Save America Act. President Donald J. Trump. From Eric Doherty just now, President Trump demanded 100% of House Republicans vote yes on passing the Save America Act this week through budget reconciliation, which only needs 50 votes plus JD Vance in the U.S. Senate. Quote, we need voter photo ID identification, proof of citizenship, and hopefully no corrupt mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military travel. Okay, so we already read all that, and looks like we've got a clip from Fox.
And the only legislative vehicle is budget reconciliation, right? Because we have to break the obstruction of Democrats. That has happened time again. Shutdowns, blocking FISA, blocking the NDAA, which is 65 years of bipartisan support. This does not, budget reconciliation does not require 60-vote threshold in the Senate. It has to meet the parameters of reconciliation, referred to as the Byrd Rule, and we can do that by making a material budget impact along with those policies by including resources to help states implement the various components, voter ID, voter registration issues, cleaning up the voter roll, et cetera. So this is not just the only tool for SAVE Act. We're not going to get help from Democrats to provide supplemental resources for our troops. So I think the two most important things we can do,
burn it all down.
Support our troops in time of conflict, give them the baseline resources they need to fight, come home safely and victoriously, but also put the safeguards in place because we have a public we have a crisis in public confidence in our elections, and we can address it here through budget reconciliation.
You know, as Chad pointed out, the last time this came up in the Senate, it didn't even get the 50 votes it needed. You do have a 53-47 majority in
Well, we're going to get
Senate.
to that in a minute.
So
there is a problem
Republican votes
that just came up.
From?
Well, you'll have the presiding officer as our vice president, so I believe you will. Even if you lost a couple of Republicans, I can't imagine why anybody would oppose an 80-20 issue.
Somebody does.
Basic safeguards like voter ID. But even if we lost 2 or 3 Republicans, with the vice president in the chair, we can do it. Also, They may not have. They may have voted. The Republicans in the Senate who opposed it may have opposed it on procedural grounds because they didn't want to nuke the filibuster. You don't have to do that in reconciliation. We just have to make a material budget impact argument to the parliamentarian who advises the presiding officer. So there's a path to succeed here, and not undermine what some Republicans would think is a procedural principle on the filibuster.
One of the criticisms from some Republicans is Senator Lisa Murkowski, which is very unique.
All right, well, I mean, regardless, it's something that they need to do fast because they're about to go on vacation for a freaking month in the Senate. All right, let me see if I've got that next one. Let's have a look. Oh man, it took me up to the top. Yeah, it does that sometimes. Sometimes the X platform gets a little glitchy. Gunther Eagleman, hey, Leader John Thune, keep the Senate in session until the Save America Act passes. Americans deserve secure elections. From Senator Mike Lee, the Senate should stay in session continuously until the Save America Act is passed. Share if you agree. And Rick Scott, my senator, after this week, the House and Senate won't be in session at the same time again until September 14th if we keep the current schedule. That's insane. We still need to pass the Save America Act and prevent Democrats from shutting down the government in October, which I'm sure they're going to do. This would not fly in the business world. We need to stay here until we get all our work done. That's why the American people, that's what they expect of us. And well, it's also what they get paid for. They get paid to do their damn jobs. Moving on to the next, another one from Mike Lee. Americans overwhelmingly agree you should have to show a photo ID when you vote. When who you are determines your eligibility to do or have a certain thing, as it certainly does in the context of voting, you should have to prove your identity.
The racial breakdown?
Absolutely.
Okay, what's the racial breakdown on this, right? Because I think a lot of people make the argument that people of color, non-white Americans, have
like
a harder time
for
procuring a photo ID to vote. But even here, take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, so that's overall. Okay, all right. I was wondering, like, well, wait a minute. With Democrats, then how's that number 71%?
In this country, a photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able to vote.
Yeah, prove who you are when you vote. Why is that a controversy? Because it seems like a certain political party wants to cheat. I mean, what else is there? Like, there's literally nothing else that you can put in place of that with them not wanting photo ID. I mean, they can make up whatever bullshit excuse they want. They're not really doing it. They're being extremely vague whenever they're pressed to come up with some excuse. And this is from Senator Lisa Murkowski. I support voter ID and believe that only U.S. citizens should vote in our elections, but the Save America Act goes beyond that and provides no time for proper implementation. It would ultimately disenfranchise some Americans in rural communities, so I oppose it. So there's one Republican senator that's not going to vote for this. Read more about my opposition here. So she's got this, and of course, in the Wall Street Journal, because why wouldn't it be in the Wall Street Journal? So I imagine it's going to be paywalled, which it is. Isn't that convenient? That here you can read my opinion. Me, an elected official that's supposed to be serving the American people, the public, at least for the state of Alaska. But unless you're signed up for the Wall Street Journal, you can't read shit. So, I mean, why not just take her opinion and post it on her own congressional website? I don't understand that. That's really frustrating. Maybe she did, but why didn't she link that instead of this Wall Street Journal nonsense? But anyway, Scott Pretzler, he actually chimes in on this. He says, to Lisa Murkowski, that's just not true. No person would be turned away from voting. Any person without documentation would be able to sign an attestation. The Save America Act does not require proof of citizenship for those already registered to vote. Why don't you suggest an amendment which would allow remote Alaskan voters to attach a copy of their proof of citizenship plus photo ID to an absentee ballot? It's completely disingenuous to say you don't have the time to implement the Save America Act when you could have passed it last year. It's equally as bad to say that you support photo ID and proof of citizenship when you won't even offer suggestions for how to earn your support on this legislation. Looks like I'll have to travel to Alaska to ask the voters themselves. Holy moly. Sounds like Scott Pretzler's taking a trip up to Alaska. I would definitely hold him to it. He's going to Alaska. I mean, as sure as the sun rises, he's going to be up there. From Lives of TikTok, just an 11% chance the Save America Act becomes law by the end of 2026, according to Polymarket. And of course, the Senate has just a few weeks left of actual working days. They're about to go on vacation for almost the entire month of August and October. Sorry, no secure elections. John Thune is too busy and our senators need their vacations. It's so freaking infuriating. So there it is on Polymarket. Looks like that. Let's see. I'm trying to see what the timeline is. I don't know. For some reason, I'm not seeing it, but whatever. It's been on the decline. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. Been on the decline, 35% when it peaked, and now it's, just barely over 10%, sitting at 11%. And then we've got the 2026 Senate calendar that you can check out there. I'll repost that if you want to look at that. It just basically looks like the days that they're there and the days that they're not there. And of course, August in red is like completely gone. So red is when the Senate is not in session. To me, that looks like there's more red than there is black on the calendar. It's absolutely ridiculous that we pay them almost $200,000 a year and they can't even show up. I don't know, like on, I would say, asking 48 work weeks out of the 52 weeks of the year. I don't think that's asking too much. If you give them 4 weeks a year off, I mean, that's probably more than most Americans get as far as paid time off is concerned. Or maybe 5 weeks. I guess even if they have 5 weeks, that's a hell of a lot better than giving them 20 weeks, 24 weeks, however many it is. It's ridiculous. All right, so let's see. From Homeland Security, Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen with the Department of Homeland Security on law enforcement cooperating to keep the World Cup safe. Quote, we've had over 40 nations that participated with our intelligence community that were helping throughout this whole process. It was incredible to see how everybody can be focused on safety and how we're able to pull it off. It's him on Fox.
So we had over 40 nations that participated with their intelligence community that was helping throughout this whole process, not just when their team was in or when their team was playing, but through the entire process. We had a team built that the main team was in Miami that was working all together and in a building that we took over literally several floors, that we're working with FIFA, we're working with all our federal agencies, all of our intelligence partners around the world, some that we had never worked with before because we hadn't done this. And it was incredible to see how everybody can be focused on safety and how we're able to pull it off. It wouldn't have been possible without coordination from the local PD it is working the streets, to the state, to federal, to our international partners. And it's the only reason why these games were able to pull off and the success that we had.
World Cup security, where they likened them to Super Bowls. What was it, 70? Was that the right number? Like the number of matches that there were? There was a lot. There was a whole lot. Over 40 countries participating in the intelligence gathering and execution of the security and keep the World Cup safe. The World Cup turned out to be a spectacular success. This is from President Trump, of course. I want to thank all of those involved, but in particular, our great law enforcement. The respect that everyone has for them, together with their love for our country, kept this great championship the safest and most spectacular World Cup in history by far. Thank you also to all others involved, and in particular to young and dynamic Andrew Giuliani, working for the government of the United States of America, and the fantastic president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, on a job well done. Few people will ever be able to accomplish what he has done in elevating the World Cup to a level that nobody thought was possible. Congratulations to all, President Donald J. Trump. So I assume the World Cup's over. I didn't catch any of them because I just don't watch sports in general. So I'm just going to assume that the World Cup has finally come to an end. From Caroline Levitt, President Trump signs an order to make the U.S. supply chains more secure and less reliant on foreign nations. This is on the Washington Times. I think it's going to be lacking a paywall, but I've been wrong before. President Trump signed an executive order on Monday. Oh, yeah, see, it says, enjoy this free article on us. So the next time, no, thank you. The next time I click on this, it will be paywalled, though. Anyway, President Trump signed an executive order on Monday that requires the government to ensure that national security contractors are not dependent on adversaries such as China or using unreliable sources for critical materials in the U.S. supply chain. The order to scrutinize sourcing arrives 6 years after the coronavirus pandemic exposed U.S. dependency on foreign suppliers for medical equipment. Yeah, dude, that was absolutely shocking to hear how much of our pharmaceuticals are produced out of the country. Like, was it our antibiotics? It was something like 98% of our antibiotics are made in China. It's absolutely ridiculous. And of course, we all remember the N95 masks where they had like like container ships full of N95 masks that were heading to the U.S. It was like in, what was that, March or maybe February of 2020, and then China turned the ships around because they said, no, we need them. We made them. We're going to use them, even though we already paid for them. But all right. More recently, Beijing used export controls to withhold rare earths and other critical minerals from the U.S. that are often used for components in missiles, aircraft, and other advanced weapon systems. Yeah, they did that. I want to say it was last November, and then they extended it by 1 year, which is why the federal government has been somewhat in a frenzy to try to figure out where we're going to source all of our rare earth minerals, because China expects to bottleneck that later this year. If a supply chain runs through an adversary, that's a strategic exposure, not an accounting detail, said Peter Navarro, White House counselor to President Trump. Mr. Navarro said the order requires the Department of Defense in particular to map out its supply chains and take actions if there are vulnerabilities in how it gets battlefield materials. Contractors and subcontractors must identify non-compliant sources and lay out steps to remove them from the supply chain while committing to a strict timeline for replacing the supplies. Quote, the United States military is the most effective and powerful fighting force on the planet and fields the most advanced weapon systems and technologies, the order says. To continue this dominance in an era of renewed great power competition, the United States must secure its supply chains against physical, cyber, and economic subversion. Mr. Navarro said for too long, administrations have been willing to look the other way and grant waivers to contractors who cannot find more secure lines of products. The biggest vulnerabilities, he said, are often found among suppliers below the prime contractors. Quote, the deeper you get into the tiers, the less likely you know where all the components lie. Mr. Navarro said, we're going to vet the lower tiers much more carefully. Mr. Navarro said the order was not just about China, but on Washington's dependency on the rest of the world. For instance, he said many countries did not share critical medical supplies during the pandemic. He said the big picture plan is for the U.S. to emerge as the #1 player in producing key minerals and supplies. Quote, the order encourages defense contractors to begin qualifying new domestic sources of critical minerals, materials, and components used in designated national security procurements from domestic and partner nation sources, while also removing regulatory barriers in the qualification process, the order says. And that'll do it for that article. So, trying to gather up our supply chain, especially for rare earth minerals, because that clock is ticking. From Secretary Marco Rubio from 2 hours ago, just landed in Manila, the Philippines, to participate in meetings with ASEAN or ASEAN leaders and the East Asia Summit. So he's there, which that was announced last week that he was going to be traveling to the Philippines for it's like 3 or 4 days, I want to say. So he's about to get all diplomatic in the Philippines. Moving to Secretary Linda McMahon, UPenn's apology to its female athletes and the restoration of their hard-earned titles was a massive victory for women's sports. The Trump administration will never stop fighting to protect fairness and common sense.
University of Penn, which was when we investigated them very thoroughly for Title IX violations, they actually came to the table, reversed decisions that they had made. I mean, Leah Thomas had to give up her title. Well. She was competing against a female, and any of the other titles that were won by males who were competing against females when the female would have won. Otherwise, those titles were returned and apologies made by the University of Pennsylvania to all of the women. So that was a really significant step, that was taken by UPenn, and we were really pleased, to see them come to the table.
Well, I mean, look, I guess it's good that they came to the table and they did that. It's just insanely ridiculous that even happened to begin with. Taking like all of that hard work that those young ladies had worked for probably since they were small children, working toward the level of competition and athleticism that they were participating in, only to have it all stripped away because a man wanted to be a female competitor. Ridiculous. From Scott Turner with Housing and Urban Development. He's the secretary for HUD. He says there's trouble in paradise. The Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority has wasted and abused taxpayer dollars for the last time. HUD, alongside the White House Fraud Task Force, is suspending new grants and investigating corruption at VIHFA. So, of course, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So the White House Fraud Task Force is heading all the way down to the Virgin Islands. Nobody can escape the White House Fraud Task Force. First on Fox, Trump administration freezes out Minnesota of the Caribbean over alleged hurricane aid abuses. And he's got the link here. And it's It's been a while, but I've been to the Virgin Islands. I went once, and it was absolutely amazing. Most people go there on cruise ships, but I actually stayed there. It was kind of cool. It was really neat. The Minnesota, the Caribbean. Trump administration freezes vacation hotspots funds over alleged hurricane aid abuses. HUD suspends Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority from federal funding over alleged fraud and mismanagement of hurricane relief. The Trump administration suspended a U.S. territory's Housing Finance Authority from receiving further federal funding after the Department of Housing and Urban Development cited years of alleged financial mismanagement, dire audit findings, and the conviction of a former executive in a disaster recovery contracting scheme. The suspension over alleged waste and abuse at the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority, or VIHFA, comes as HUD Secretary Scott Turner, a member of the White House Fraud Task Force to eliminate fraud, ramps up the administration's scrutiny of federal grant recipients following a series of high-profile investigations nationwide. Quote, the Trump administration is changing the game when it comes to who we entrust with taxpayer dollars. Organizations riddled with corruption, mismanagement, and crime will no longer be allowed to squander billions, Turner, a former NFL cornerback, told Fox News Digital. I don't know why they threw in the NFL cornerback part, but whatever. VIHFA officials cannot be allowed to prioritize kickbacks over helping families recover from disasters. I promised that HUD would be a faithful steward of the American people's hard-earned money, and we are keeping that promise. Turner said the suspension is effective immediately as the HUD chief's deputy Andrew Hughes fired off a 13-page letter to VIHFA official Dana Clendenin, laying out HUD's findings and alerting that they are barred from future federal procurement while an investigation takes place. When approached for comment, a representative who picked up the phone at VIHFA on Monday directed Fox to a full voicemail box. Hilarious. Fox then reached out to VIHFA's contact page for comment, and Fox also reached out to delegate, I believe, Stacey Plaskett from the Virgin Islands and Democratic Virgin Islands Governor Albert Bryan's office for an additional comment. I have a feeling they're not going to get any answers from them. In the letter, HUD claimed the nearly $2 billion appropriation to VIHFA was intended for recovery after Hurricanes Irma and Maria devastated the American archipelago in 2017, calculated to about $20,000 per USVI resident. Yeah, Irma was a mother, and actually Maria was too, for that matter. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't there during Irma, but I was in the Tampa Bay area when Irma plowed through the peninsula, and it was nasty. That was not a good hurricane, man. It was a beautiful hurricane when you looked at it on satellite, but yeah, that was a monster. Quote, 9 years later, because of VIHFA's blatant mismanagement of these critical disaster funds, USVI citizens still do not have the housing and electrical power they were promised nearly a decade ago, the agency said, citing the prevalence of blue tarped roofs and shoddy infrastructure, including a teetering power grid in the time since. They still haven't fixed everything yet. I'm going all the way back to 2017. So there's still people who are Americans, I mean, they are living in the Virgin Islands, and they've had tarp up on their roofs for almost a decade. That is insane. HUD said audits found disaster recovery spending lagged badly, while administrative spending consumed a disproportionate share of available funds. The agency also cited the former COO's criminal kickback scheme as evidence of weak internal controls. So look, the whole socialism thing, the whole road to communism thing, just imagine what they're going through in the Virgin Islands and apply that to the entire country. I mean, I think that's what we'd be stuck with in a society like that, especially if it's run by the Democrats. VIHFA's former chief operating officer, Darren Richardson, was sentenced in March to 36 months in prison after being convicted of bank fraud, money laundering, making false statements, and criminal conflict of interest. Prosecutors and Richardson received $107,000 from a contractor in connection with the scheme. HUD said the misconduct occurred during execution of his duties at VIHFA. That contract was later inflated by 50% from $3 to $4.5 million, HUD said in its letter, adding that much of the lumber was allowed to rot in the tropical sun. This is ridiculous. So they even had the building materials to fix everything, and they just let it sit and do nothing. HUD said Richardson's conduct standing alone was sufficient to call into question VIHFA's responsibility to receive additional federal funds. HUD informed VIHFA it has substantial evidence of failure to comply with aid obligations, a lack of internal controls over financial matters, fraud risks, and conflict of interest situations. And another quote, VIHFA has failed to implement effective fraud controls despite the indictment and conviction of its former COO in a federal contracting fraud scheme. It has repeatedly made false certifications to HUD that it has proficient financial controls, has safeguards to prohibit conflict of interest, has not obtained duplicate federal benefits, and complies with applicable laws and regulations. Housing and Urban Development alleged in their suspension notice. So there you go. When is this? Let's see. Blue tarp stamped with FEMA logo covers the roof of a home more than a week after Hurricane Irma. I was going to say, there's no way that was like a week ago. That'd be crazy. No, you could tell it's right after the hurricane because all the trees had their leaves stripped off. All right, so HUD cited multiple audits spanning a decade that raised significant concerns about funding-related activities, which collectively questioned millions in costs and uncovered weak financial controls, inadequate project oversight, poor fraud risk management, and inaccurate reporting. A 2026 audit concluded VIHFA had failed to implement a structured fraud prevention framework despite overseeing $1.9 billion in disaster recovery funding. So, yeah, where's all the money? That's $1,900 million. If I'm remembering that right. Further condemning the glacial pace of storm recovery, HUD found that only 2% of planned single-family rentals and 16% of single-family homeowners and just 19% of multifamily rental projects have been completed since the storm struck nearly a decade ago. Wow. 2% of planned single-family rentals. That's it. That's insane. I mean, all those numbers are abysmal. 19% of multifamily rental projects have been done in 10 years. None of 329 housing work mitigation projects have been finished, while HUD found a yawning gap between high expenditures by VIHFA on administrative concerns and low expenditures on residents and their homes. Whether poor management or something worse, the consequences are unacceptable. The residents of the USVI who were devastated by disaster are not getting what they need from VIHFA. HUD wrote to the authority. VIHFA spent $52.6 million on administrative costs alone, according to its report. HUD also found VIHFA's divisions unwisely operate in silos, hindering communication and fraud risk management. So how much longer does this go? Okay, so it goes on a little bit longer, so I'll just leave it there. Yeah, when I went down there, it was either in 2015 or 2016, so Irma didn't quite hit yet, so it was absolutely gorgeous there then. I mean, I'm sure 10 years later, I'm sure like the landscape has already fully recovered, but you know, to still see blue tarps on buildings is ridiculous, especially when it's in American territory and they receive $2 billion to fix everything. The Virgin Islands isn't that big. Like the Maine island, the one that has the main town, city, it's not even really a city, it's more of a town, like Charlotte Amalie. It's like 35 square miles. It's a really small island, and there's 3 of them in total. There's St. Croix and St. John, I think is the other one, and St. Thomas. St. Thomas is the 3rd one. But yeah, very tiny. I would have argued that $2 billion is probably way more than they needed, if anything. All right, so that is that. Reaching all the way down to the Virgin Islands. They are reaching as far out as the U.S. territories. The White House Fraud Task Force. Well, that's good. Leave no stone unturned. And from space and technology, getting to the end of the video, NASA has successfully demonstrated swarm technology in space using multiple small CubeSats. These spacecraft work together by sharing data and making collective decisions after spending 10 months in orbit. So they launched a hive mind in space, I guess. The mission was successfully completed way back on May 29th of 2024. Although I don't know if this is like, we're just now finding that out. I don't know. I don't know why they keep that a secret, if they kept it a secret, but you know, they've got a video that shows what they were up to.
NASA successfully demonstrated swarm technology in space. Swarm technology involves deploying numerous small, autonomous spacecraft that work together in a coordinated manner to perform tasks. These tiny CubeSats were launched aboard Rocket Lab's Electron rocket. After 10 months of orbiting, the spacecraft began working together effectively, sharing data and making collective decisions to achieve their objectives efficiently. NASA also plans to utilize this swarm technology for future deep space exploration missions.
Huh. Deep space exploration missions. That sounds interesting. I don't know. I could see where that might be of some use. Might come in handy. Using swarm technology. Brave new world. Science and nature. I believe this is the last one. Yep, this is the last one I got. NASA just released the clearest view of Mars ever, including the actual sound of Mars. So if that's actually true, let me get rid of the background music and... Oh, wait. Nope, didn't do it. There we go. All right, so let's hear this. Let's hear Mars. No, there's no sound. What are they talking about? I'm looking at the sound bar. There's no sound. Well, anyway, enjoy the pictures. Enjoy the video. The clearest view of Mars. Rocks and dirt. Well, very fine sand, I suppose. Rocks and very fine sand. Okay. Well, anyway. So, yeah, that's it. At least that's what they say is the clearest view of Mars ever. I don't believe they gave any links or anything, did they? Here, let me just double check. I don't think that they did. Nope. No, just comments and so forth. But anyway, that is going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp, Monday through Friday. And also don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on this channel tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for watching. God bless the troops. God bless America.